All right, so are you ready? Because today we are going to take a deep dive into Atomic Habits by James Clear.
Ooh, Atomic Habits. I love that book.
Yeah, it's a good one, right?
So good.
It's all about, those tiny changes that you can make that add up to huge results over time.
It's crazy how much those little things actually matter.
Yeah,
And he does such a good job of explaining it.
absolutely. So, think of this deep dive as like a shortcut, to understanding how those small everyday choices can either build you up or hold you back.
That's what I think is so cool about his approach, is it's so personal.
Mm.
He doesn't just talk about habits in theory.
Yeah.
He shares his own story, like how he had this serious baseball injury and he had to rebuild his life.
Oh, wow.
Literally like one tiny habit at a time.
Yeah, that's what makes it so relatable.
Yeah.
It's not just some, guru preaching from a mountaintop.
Right.
It's someone who's been there, done that.
Exactly.
And he makes a really compelling case for the power of those 1% improvements, those tiny gains that we often dismiss, right?
Right. Imagine this. Okay, you get just 1% better each day.
Yeah.
For a year.
Okay.
Seems pretty insignificant, right?
Wow.
But at the end of that year, you'll be nearly 37 times better than you were at the start.
That's wild.
It's crazy. Now flip that around, write 1% words every day.
Okay.
And well, let's just say the results aren't pretty.
Yeah. Well, I don't even want to think about that.
Yeah, no, it's like compound interest.
Okay.
But for your habits, small changes consistently applied, they really snowball.
That's a good way to put it. And that's where things get really interesting because we've all heard about setting goals, right?
Right.
But Clear argues that focusing on your system, the daily process, is even more important.
I love that point.
Yeah.
Think of it this way.
Okay.
Would you rather be a basketball coach who obsesses over the scoreboard
Uh-huh.
or one who meticulously plans each practice, analyzes each play, focuses on the team's technique?
Obviously, the coach who focuses on the process. Exactly.
He's going to see more success.
Totally.
But how does that apply to, say, wanting to write a novel or get in shape?
It's the same principle. Instead of fixating on publishing that book or running a marathon,
Yeah.
what daily habits would get you there?
Okay.
Maybe it's writing for 30 minutes each morning or going for a short run 3 times a week.
Right.
Consistency over intensity. That's the key.
I like that. So it's less about the grand vision and more about putting in the work day after day.
Yeah.
But how do we actually stick to those daily actions?
Right.
Cleary introduces this really fascinating idea of identity-based habits.
Oh, this is where it's at.
I'm curious to hear your take on that.
I mean, this is where lasting change really happens.
Okay.
It's not just about doing something differently.
Uh-huh.
It's about becoming someone new. It's
Yeah.
like the difference between wanting to read a book and wanting to be a reader.
Right. I love the story he tells about Brian Clark, this entrepreneur who finally kicked his nail-biting habit
Oh, yeah.
by getting a manicure.
Who knew a trip to the salon could be so life-changing?
I know, it's funny, right?
Right.
But it wasn't just about the pretty nails.
Yeah.
That manicure reinforced this new identity.
Okay.
Like someone who takes care of themselves, someone who doesn't bait their nails.
Mm.
His actions started to align with who he saw himself to be.
I see.
That shift in mindset is crucial.
So we've got to build a system that supports our desired identity.
Exactly.
But how do we make those habits stick, especially the good ones?
Right.
Clear's 4 laws of behavior change seem like a good place to start.
Absolutely. These are like the building blocks of habit formation.
Okay.
The first law is all about making the cue for the habit obvious.
Okay.
Clear calls this make it obvious.
So it's about eliminating any guesswork, right?
Yeah.
So instead of vaguely saying, I'll try to work out today,
Right.
it's more like, I'll go for a run at 7 a.m. in the park right after I have my coffee.
Exactly. That specificity is key.
Okay.
Clear suggests using what he calls implementation intentions, which is basically a fancy way of saying plan exactly when and where you'll do the habit.
So no more wishy-washy intentions. It's about making a concrete plan.
Right.
It reminds me of another technique he mentions, habit stacking.
Oh, yeah.
What's your take on that?
Habit stacking is brilliant
Okay.
for piggybacking new habits onto existing ones.
Okay.
So let's say you already make your bed every morning.
Uh-huh.
You could stack a new habit on top of that.
Okay.
Like, after I make my bed, I will meditate for 5 minutes.
So you're basically using an existing automatic behavior as a trigger for a new one.
Exactly.
Like a domino effect for good habits.
Totally.
But making it obvious also applies to our environment, right?
Absolutely. Our surroundings play a huge role.
Okay.
Think about it. It's way easier to grab a cookie if it's sitting on the counter,
Yeah.
right? Or to like mindlessly scroll through your phone when you get a notification.
Oh, yeah.
Those cues are staring us in the face.
So to make good habits stick, we need to make the cues for them just as obvious.
Yeah.
Exactly. Put your running shoes by the door, lay out your workout clothes, prep healthy snacks ahead of time. Make those good choices, the easy default choices.
And I'm guessing do the opposite for bad habits?
Yes.
Make those cues invisible.
Exactly. Hide the junk food, put the video game controller in a drawer, silence those distracting notifications, make those bad habits harder to access.
It reminds me of that study he mentions about electricity usage.
Oh, yeah.
Just by making energy consumption visible to people, they naturally started using less electricity.
It's crazy, right?
Simply being aware of a behavior can have a huge impact.
Totally.
All right, so we've made the cue obvious.
Okay.
That's the next step in making a habit stick.
The second law is all about motivation.
Okay.
Make it attractive.
Okay.
Our brains are wired to seek pleasure and avoid pain.
That's for sure.
So how do we make those good habits more appealing?
Yeah, I remember him talking about temptation bundling.
Oh, yeah.
That's where he links something you want to do with something you need to do.
It's like the student who hacked his stationary bike to only work if he was simultaneously watching Netflix.
That's a perfect example.
Right.
He made exercising more attractive by pairing it with something he already enjoyed.
Yeah.
Think about it like listening to your favorite podcast while you clean the house.
Oh, yeah.
Rewarding yourself with a relaxing bath after a tough workout.
Oh.
Those are all forms of temptation bundling.
So it's like tricking your brain into associating a have to with a want to.
Exactly.
But he also talks about the importance of finding your tribe, right?
Absolutely. Joining a culture where your desired behavior is the norm can make a world of difference.
Okay.
Think about like gyms or running clubs where everyone is passionate about fitness.
Yeah.
It's much easier to stick with a habit when you're surrounded by people who are doing the same thing and who support your goals.
It's like that saying, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Exactly.
That British cycling team we talked about earlier, they didn't just make tiny improvements to their gear and their training.
They created a culture of excellence.
Right.
Where everyone was dedicated to continuous improvement.
It's powerful.
That shared commitment is incredibly powerful.
It is.
So we've made the cue obvious.
Okay.
And the habit attractive.
Uh-huh.
What's the next step?
Now it's time to make it easy.
Okay.
This is all about reducing friction and simplifying things.
Okay.
Making it as effortless as possible to start and stick with the habit.
I'm all for making things easier, especially when it comes to building good habits.
You too.
What are some strategies for achieving that?
Well, it's about shifting from planning to doing.
Okay.
Remember his story about his photography class?
Oh, yeah?
The students who took tons of photos, even if they weren't perfect, ended up learning more than those who obsessed over getting each shot just right.
It's like that quote, done is better than perfect.
Yes.
Sometimes we get so caught up in trying to do everything perfectly
Right.
that we never actually get started.
Exactly. Action is what ultimately drives results.
And one of the best ways to get into that action mode is by using the 2-minute rule.
The 2-minute rule, tell me more.
Okay, it's about scaling down any habit to a 2-minute version.
Okay.
Run 3 miles becomes tie my running shoes. Write a chapter becomes write 1 sentence.
Okay.
The idea is to remove any barriers to getting started.
So it's about tricking your brain into thinking,
Yeah.
oh, this is easy. I can do this.
Totally.
And once you've overcome that initial inertia, it's much easier to keep going.
Right, and as you master the habit of just showing up, you can gradually increase the duration and intensity.
I see.
It's about building momentum.
Those tiny 2-minute actions can really snowball.
They do.
But I imagine the make it easy principle can also be applied to breaking bad habits, right?
Absolutely. In that case, you want to increase friction.
Okay.
Make those bad habits harder to do.
Like unplugging the TV after each use, putting your phone in another room to avoid mindless scrolling, or deleting those time-wasting apps. It's about making those bad habits less accessible.
Exactly. You're essentially designing your environment to nudge you towards good choices and away from bad ones.
This is making me think about how I can rearrange my entire apartment.
I know, right?
Okay, so we've made it obvious, attractive, and easy. What's the final element in his framework for habit change?
The 4th and final law is all about rewards.
Okay.
Make it satisfying. It taps into our brain's natural reward system.
This is where those feel-good chemicals like dopamine come into play, right?
Yes.
Tell me more about how we can use that to our advantage.
Well, we tend to repeat behaviors that feel good and avoid ones that feel bad. It's basic human nature.
This reminds me of the story he shares about the public health worker in Pakistan
Oh, yeah.
who improved hand-washing rates by making the soap more enjoyable to use.
That's a good one.
It's amazing what a little bit of foam and fragrance can do.
I know, right?
So how can we apply this to our own lives? Are we supposed to reward ourselves with a cookie every time we go for a run?
Well, the rewards don't have to be big or unhealthy.
Right.
It could be something as simple as enjoying a cup of tea after your morning meditation
Yeah.
or listening to your favorite music while you exercise.
The key is to associate those positive feelings with the habit itself.
Exactly. And one of the easiest ways to do that is through habit tracking.
Ah, yes. The power of those little check marks.
I know.
Whether it's an app, a calendar, or even just a simple notebook.
Right.
There's something so satisfying about visually tracking your progress.
It is.
It provides concrete evidence of your hard work, which reinforces that feeling of accomplishment.
Totally.
And that sense of progress can be a powerful motivator in itself.
It really can.
Okay, so we've got the 4 laws. Make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying.
Yes.
But I remember him also emphasizing the role of our environment in shaping our habits.
Oh, yeah.
We've touched on this a bit, but can you elaborate on that?
You're right. Our environment plays a huge role.
Okay.
It's constantly shaping our behavior, often without us even realizing it.
It's like those strategically placed candy bars at the grocery store checkout line.
Oh, yeah.
They're practically designed to trigger impulse purchases.
I know.
And it's the same principle with our personal environments. If your workout clothes are buried in the back of your closet, it's going to be harder to motivate yourself to exercise.
Right.
But if they're laid out and ready to go,
Yeah.
it reduces friction and makes it easier to get started.
Exactly. It's about creating an environment that supports our desired habits and discourages the bad ones.
Speaking of the digital landscape, how does technology fit into this whole habit formation equation? It seems like it can be both a blessing and a curse.
Absolutely. Technology can be a powerful tool for both building good habits and fostering bad ones.
I remember him sharing his own experience with taking a social media sabbatical.
Oh, yeah.
He used an app to block certain websites and found that he was much more productive and focused without those constant distractions.
It's amazing how much those things affect us.
Yeah.
He talks about how technology can create a sort of default behavior
Okay.
where we mindlessly scroll or check our phones out of habit rather than intention.
It's scary how easy it is to get sucked into that vortex of endless scrolling.
I
But the good news is that we can use technology to our advantage.
Totally.
It's about being mindful of how we're using it
Right.
and finding ways to make it work for us, not against us.
Exactly.
This is making me think about all the ways I could use technology to automate good habits, like setting reminders to drink water or using a meal planning app to make healthy eating easier.
Those are great examples. And just as technology can make good habits easier, it can also make bad habits harder.
Okay.
Think about using website blockers to limit time spent on social media or turning off notifications to minimize distractions.
This is a whole other layer to the make it easy principle.
It is.
We've got to design our digital environment just as carefully as we design our physical one.
I agree.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah.
The power of tiny gains. The importance of focusing on systems over goals.
Yes.
The intriguing concept of identity-based habits.
Right.
The 4 laws of behavior change. The role of environment, and even how technology can be both a help and a hindrance.
It's a lot.
It's a lot to process, but it's incredibly empowering to realize how much control we have over shaping our habits and ultimately our lives.
It's about taking ownership of those small, everyday choices and recognizing that they have a ripple effect over time.
All right, well, we're just getting started.
I know, right?
There's so much more to explore. We'll be back soon to dive deeper into some specific applications of these principles,
Ooh, I can't wait.
including how they can revolutionize businesses and even parenting. Welcome back. So before we jump into some other applications of atomic habits, we were discussing technology.
Right.
The double-edged sword, how it can be helpful but also harmful when building those tiny habits for big change.
It really is all about being mindful and intentional. You know, we can leverage technology to make those positive changes easier, but it takes effort to resist the pull of those quick-hit dopamine loops that many apps and platforms are designed for.
So true. It's like we have to outsmart our own devices sometimes.
Yeah.
Clear talks about using technology to automate good habits. What are some examples of how we can actually do that?
Well, think about things like setting up automatic bill payments
Oh, yeah.
to avoid late fees,
Okay.
or using a meal planning app to make healthy eating a breeze.
Okay.
It takes the effort out of remembering.
Yeah.
It makes it easier to stay on track.
It's about setting ourselves up for success right from the start.
Exactly.
But how do we combat those tempting distractions that technology throws our way?
Yeah.
You know those apps that seem designed to steal our time and attention?
We can use tech to fight tech.
Okay. I like that.
Website blockers can limit time spent on social media.
Okay.
And turning off notifications can minimize those pesky distractions that pull us away from what we should be doing.
I tried a social media detox a while back, and honestly, it was amazing how much more I got done.
Oh, yeah.
I even started reading again.
Good for you.
It's incredible how much those seemingly small distractions can derail us.
It really can.
Clear really hits the nail on the head when he talks about how technology creates these, like, default behaviors.
Yeah.
We mindlessly scroll, check our phones, refresh our inboxes.
Right.
Almost like it's an unconscious reflex.
I know, it's so true.
It's so true, but we can break free from those defaults and create a digital environment that actually supports us, not sabotages us.
We just need to be intentional about it. You know, use those website blockers. Strategically silence notifications. Curate your social media feeds to minimize negativity.
Okay.
You have more control than you think.
It's empowering to realize that we're not just helpless victims of the algorithm.
Right.
We can take back control.
We can.
Speaking of taking control, what about those moments when our motivation takes a nosedive?
Yeah.
You know, when those good habits we've worked so hard to build start to feel a little bit boring.
Even the best habits can feel like a chore sometimes.
Yeah.
That's where the fourth law made satisfying comes in.
Okay.
Remember, our brains crave those rewards.
So what are some strategies for keeping things fresh and engaging, even when we're not feeling super motivated?
Reinforcement is a powerful tool. Give yourself small rewards after completing a habit.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be anything big. A cup of tea after your morning meditation.
Okay.
A walk in nature after finishing a work project. Or even just 5 minutes to read a good book after a long day.
It's all about associating those positive feelings with the habit itself.
Exactly. Another key is focusing on progress.
Okay.
Celebrate those small wins along the way. It's easy to get caught up in the what's next.
Right.
But taking the time to acknowledge those milestones, no matter how small, can reignite that motivation and remind you that you're on the right track.
We're often so focused on reaching the destination that we forget to enjoy the journey.
That's true. And sometimes we just need to embrace a bit of boredom.
Embracing boredom.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued. How does that fit into the picture?
Well, even enjoyable habits can become a little monotonous over time.
Okay.
The novelty wears off, and we're tempted to abandon them for something new and exciting.
I know that feeling. It's happened to me with workout routines, hobbies, even relationships.
Right.
That initial excitement fades, and it takes effort to keep things going.
That's where embracing boredom comes in. It's about recognizing that not every moment has to be filled with excitement and novelty. Sometimes it's about finding joy in the simplicity and consistency of a well-established routine.
So how do we avoid falling into that trap of boredom and ditching our good habits?
Clear suggests focusing on the process, not just the outcome.
Okay.
For example, instead of obsessing over losing 10 pounds, enjoy the feeling of moving your body, getting stronger and improving your fitness.
It's about finding that internal satisfaction.
Yeah.
Regardless of external results.
Exactly. He also talks about challenging ourselves.
Okay.
Think Goldilocks rule.
Okay.
Find that sweet spot, that level of difficulty that pushes you just outside your comfort zone without being overwhelming.
Okay.
Too easy and you get bored.
Right.
Too hard and you get discouraged.
Yeah.
Find that balance.
It's about keeping things interesting and engaging.
Right.
Without sacrificing consistency.
And then there are variable rewards. He uses the example of slot machines. What keeps people hooked?
Yeah, what is it?
The unpredictability of the reward.
Okay.
You might win big one time, then have to keep playing to see if you'll win again?
It's that element of surprise
Yeah.
that keeps people coming back for more.
Now, we're not suggesting you turn your healthy habits into a gamble,
Okay.
but we can learn from that principle,
Okay.
introduce some variability, some element of surprise into your routine.
So if you always run the same route,
Uh-huh.
try mixing it up with a new trail or a different type of workout.
Exactly.
If you always cook the same meals,
Right.
try a new recipe or a different cuisine.
Exactly. Keep things fresh and interesting.
Mmm.
Break free from the monotony and reignite that sense of enjoyment.
This is making me think about how I can apply this to my writing.
Uh-huh.
Maybe I need to shake things up with a different genre or try collaborating with someone new.
See, you're already thinking about ways to make your habits more engaging.
I am?
It's not just about discipline and willpower.
Right.
It's about finding that sweet spot where effort meets enjoyment.
This has been incredibly helpful. But before we wrap up part 2 of our deep dive,
Okay.
I'm curious to hear more about his thoughts on the downside of creating good habits.
Right.
It seems counterintuitive,
Yeah.
but I remember him mentioning some potential pitfalls.
You're right. While good habits are undeniably beneficial,
Yeah.
we have to be mindful of those potential downsides.
Okay.
One trap is becoming too rigid or attached to our habits, even when they no longer serve us.
It's like those times when we keep following a routine out of habit,
Yeah.
even though it's become inefficient or even detrimental.
Exactly. It's crucial to remember that habits are tools.
Okay.
And like any tool,
Mm-hmm.
they can become outdated or even harmful if they're not used appropriately. We can't let those positive habits turn into negative ones
Yeah.
simply because we're too attached to the routine.
That's a great point. We have to be willing to adapt and evolve. So how do we avoid falling into that trap of rigidity?
Cleary recommends regularly reviewing and reflecting on our habits.
Okay.
Ask yourself, is this habit still serving me?
Mm.
Is there a better way to achieve this outcome?
It's about being honest with ourselves
Yeah.
and being willing to make adjustments as needed, not being afraid to change things up.
Exactly. And it's about recognizing that mastery is a journey, not a destination. There's always room for improvement and refinement.
So even when we've developed a good habit, we shouldn't be afraid to experiment and iterate, always looking for ways to do things better.
Right. It's about finding that balance between consistency and flexibility. Stick with what works, but be open to change when necessary.
Yeah.
That's where true growth happens.
This is so fascinating. We've explored so much.
I know, right?
From the 4 laws of behavior change to the importance of environment technology and even embracing boredom. I'm eager to hear about those other applications of these principles you mentioned earlier, like in business and parenting.
Those are areas where atomic habits can have a profound impact.
Okay.
And that's exactly what we'll be diving into in the final part of our deep dive.
All right, welcome back to our deep dive into atomic habits.
I'm ready for more.
We've uncovered so much about, building those tiny habits for big changes.
It's been great.
Now I'm really excited to explore those other applications you mentioned. Like, how can we take these principles beyond our personal lives and apply them to things like businesses and even parenting?
That's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
You know how these concepts can be applied in so many different areas?
Yeah.
So let's start with like the business world.
Okay.
Claire argues that those same principles that work for individuals can be used to create like a culture of success within organizations.
That makes sense. After all, businesses are made up of people.
Exactly.
And people are driven by habits.
And habits drive results. So it's about understanding those underlying behaviors and shaping the environment to encourage those desired actions.
This reminds me of that example he gives about the hospital cafeteria that wanted to encourage people to drink more water. They simply rearranged the drink options so that water was the most accessible choice.
It's so simple.
No lectures, no mandates, just a simple tweak to the environment.
And it worked.
And people started drinking more water.
It's amazing.
It's amazing how a small change like that can have such a big impact.
It is. It's a perfect example of how we can nudge people towards better choices.
Yeah.
Without resorting to like force or pressure.
Right.
Make the right thing to do the easy thing to do.
I like that.
As the saying goes.
I can see how this principle could be applied to so many aspects of a business.
Oh, yeah.
From promoting collaboration and creativity to boosting productivity and efficiency.
Absolutely. Imagine a workplace where those tiny improvements are constantly being made, where everyone is empowered to experiment, learn, and contribute their best work.
Yeah.
That's a recipe for a thriving company culture.
It's about creating an environment where small wins become contagious.
Totally. But how do you translate those individual habit changes
Right.
into collective organizational success?
Yeah, that's the key.
Cleary emphasizes the importance of feedback and reinforcement.
Mm-hmm.
Just like giving yourself a small reward
Uh-huh.
after completing a personal habit.
Okay.
Businesses can use incentives and recognition
Yeah.
to reinforce those desired behaviors among employees.
So it could be something as simple as like acknowledging a job well done
Yeah.
or offering opportunities for professional development.
Exactly. Or even creating a system of rewards
Okay.
tied to specific goals.
Yeah.
It's about making people feel valued and appreciated,
Hmm.
which can go a long way toward boosting morale and motivation.
It's about celebrating those small wins, not just for individuals, but for the entire team.
Totally. And that leads to another crucial point, the power of clear communication.
Okay.
For atomic habits to work effectively within an organization,
Uh-huh.
everyone needs to be on the same page.
Okay.
Leaders need to clearly articulate the company's vision, values, and goals.
This reminds me of Dave Brailsford and his approach with the British cycling team.
Oh, yeah?
He didn't just tell the riders to work harder. He broke down every aspect of their performance,
Right.
identified tiny areas for improvement,
Yeah.
and created a system that supported those incremental gains.
That's a great example of how a clear vision, a well-defined system, and consistent feedback can lead to extraordinary results.
Yeah.
Even in a field as competitive as professional cycling.
Okay, so we've explored how these principles can be applied in the business world.
Okay.
Now I'm really interested to hear about how they can be used in parenting.
Yeah.
It seems like a whole other ballgame.
It is. Parenting presents its own unique challenges.
For sure.
But the principles of atomic habits can be incredibly valuable for raising children who are responsible seriators, resilient and successful.
I'm guessing it starts with setting a good example.
Absolutely.
After all, kids are master imitators.
They are.
They're always watching and absorbing those cues from the adults in their lives.
It's crucial for parents to be mindful of their own habits and behaviors.
Yeah.
If you want your kids to eat healthily, you need to make healthy eating a part of your own routine.
Okay.
If you want them to be kind and respectful, you need to model those behaviors yourself.
It's about showing them, not just telling them,
Right.
what it means to live a fulfilling and values-driven life.
And just like in the business world, it's about creating a supportive and structured environment.
So we're back to that idea of making the right thing to do the easy thing to do.
Exactly. This could involve establishing clear routines,
Okay.
creating designated spaces for homework and play, or making healthy snacks readily available. It's about setting them up for success by making those desired behaviors easier and more appealing.
It's about those small intentional choices that shape their environment and ultimately their habits.
And don't forget about the power of technology.
Oh, yeah, right?
Just like it can be used to automate good habits for adults, it can be a valuable tool for kids as well.
So we're talking about things like using apps to track chores,
Right.
setting limits on screen time, or creating those reward systems tied to positive behavior.
Exactly. It's all about finding those creative ways to make those good habits more engaging and fun. But remember, technology is a tool.
Right.
And like any tool, it needs to be used wisely and with intention.
It's about finding that balance. And of course, communication is key.
Always.
Just like those leaders need to clearly communicate goals and expectations within a business. Parents need to have those open and honest conversations with their children.
It's about explaining the why behind the rules, helping them understand the connection between their actions and those consequences, good or bad.
This all ties back to his emphasis on identity-based habits.
It does.
It's not just about getting kids to do their chores or eat their vegetables.
Right.
It's about helping them develop a sense of self-efficacy.
Exactly. It's about guiding them toward becoming the kind of people who make those positive choices naturally, who embrace those values, and who believe in their own ability to make a difference.
It's about fostering those intrinsic motivations.
Right. And it requires a balance of support and accountability. It's about offering encouragement and guidance while also setting clear expectations and consequences.
It's about being both the cheerleader and the coach.
Exactly. It's a delicate dance.
Yeah.
But it's essential for helping those children develop the skills and self-discipline they need to thrive.
Wow, this has been such an eye-opening exploration of atomic habits and their applications.
It really has.
It's incredible how these simple principles can be used to improve so many aspects of our lives. Right. From our personal well-being to our work and even our parenting.
It really highlights the power of those small changes, consistently applied.
Mm.
As Clear reminds us, success is the product of daily habits, not once-in-a-lifetime transformations.
It's such a powerful reminder that we don't have to wait for some grand moment of inspiration to start making those positive changes.
We can start right now.
We can start right now with those tiny 1% improvements
Yes.
that can add up to extraordinary results.
It's about taking those small steps one day at a time and trusting the process.
Well, we've reached the end of our deep dive into atomic habits.
It's been fun.
I hope you found this exploration as insightful and empowering as I have.
Me too.
Remember, you have the power to shape your habits.
You do.
And in doing so, you shape your destiny.
Keep those tiny gains coming. And remember, even the smallest changes can make a world of difference.